Hello, I'm Dr. Jerry Meadows, the CEO of Christ Academy, and I'm excited to be able to share with you the results of our 2020-2021 Aspire results. Now, at Christ Academy, we are not a test-driven school, but we do believe assessments are exceptionally important of how we not only assess progress for our students, but for our program and for our teachers. But even though we do many types of assessments, we do know that a standardized test has at least a very important part of that package. And we have chosen for that part of our assessment program the ACT Aspire because we believe, number one, it gives us a vertical system of assessments to monitor progress toward college and career readiness. But not only do that, we're doing it against the benchmarks set by higher ed. We also have learned that those same benchmarks will also help achieve success in the workforce. So we're looking to see how well our students are meeting those benchmarks from elementary to high school, connecting each grade level to the next. We also get a longitudinal assessment data tied to this readiness because we now have a benchmark from whatever grade they start to wherever they're in, so we can see patterns over time. We can see is the student continually increasing, improving, are they leveling out, or are they beginning to maybe drop off for a little while? If they are dropping off or leveling out, is that an anomaly or is that continuing? So not only do we have just one piece of data to look at, we now have a map we can look at over periods of years to truly see what's happening with the student success and also with the way we do curriculum assessment, curriculum delivery, and curriculum development. It was also important to us to test our students in the same content areas as the ACT. That means we're going to be looking at English, mathematics, reading, and science. But a note about the reading, this is not for word recognition or just reading from how you can read words at grade level. It's actually reading for meaning. What can a student do when information is presented in different formats? Can they apply it? Can they predict it? Can they begin to compare, contrast? Can they make decisions based on whether something is missing or not missing? So they're going to be looking at graphs. Information is presented in several different ways. So we're looking for reading for meaning, which is going to make a big difference in how well they succeed, especially when they get into junior high, senior high, and higher ed. And the last thing we look for is that this assessment is a progress toward that college readiness benchmark, especially as it is laid out for the ACT. Because a lot of our students take the ACT because it feels familiar to them and it links to what they already know, and we get to tie that last knot from the time they start to the time they end. And you'll see as we go through this, we do it at all levels, the Aspire, the PSAT, and the ACT. So, some assumptions we must make, and you must keep in mind when we look at these scores and we interpret them, is we have to make sure we know we are a very small group. Therefore, caution has to be used when interpreting these results. It's because, as you know, in a small group, one very high score or one very low score can truly over-influence that scores for the group. So those outliers are important, and we do look at them. But we also look to mitigate this, to make sure we're not over-assuming or under-assuming. We look for trends or patterns. Again, are the students progressing over the years? Or are they beginning to level out? Or do we see some downward trends or patterns? That then triggers us to know how we need to look at what we're seeing. What does it truly mean in light of student success or program development? So those are the things that we use to make sure we're using these test results appropriately and for success of not only the students, but for Christ Academy as well. And one last thing I would like for you to keep in mind when we talk about this is we have to all know that 2020 and 2021 was a pandemic year, and this test was administered under those conditions. So we were concerned. We were not sure what the results would be. Our students were exhausted. They had been under mask mandates for many, many months and weeks. Were they exhausted? Would it influence the way they tested? Were they able to concentrate? They've been isolated from other things and been in their cohorts. What would this mean for them when they're all of a sudden put into a high-stress condition or situation? So we were anxiously looking to see, overall, would we see a decrease in score? Would we see what we considered a learning gap? Or what exactly would we see? So here they are, and I'm very happy to tell you. If you look at our school subject proficiency, and now this is comparing us to the total group. That total group is all private schools of similar composition, both nationally and internationally, who took this test. We are a member of an organization called the Association of Christian Schools International, and it's called that because they have schools in the United States and schools scattered across the world. So any of those schools who administer the ACT Aspire are going to be included in this comparison group. And that's going to be around 5,000 schools and students that we're looking at. So how do we compare to schools of similar composition and similar expectations? That's how we wanted to know. If you look at all 4 subject categories, we outperformed our total group. That means we have not seen, and we do not expect to see, a learning gap. That was anecdotally even confirmed by our teachers when we started the year, asking them point blank, what do you see in your students? Are they ready? Are they resistant? Are they frightened? Are they behind? Are they slow? And what we heard was they were a little timid only because they were not sure what to expect because the campus was open again. But they did not seem behind. They did not seem reticent to try anything. So we were willing to say, and very comfortable saying, we've experienced no learning gap into this thing. Our students still are high performing. And the 4 categories that we look at are exceeding the benchmarks, ready or meeting the benchmarks, or close to the benchmarks. We are not afraid to be close because all students need to be able to achieve at their own level and at their own pace. And what close means is they're almost there. With a little tutoring, with a little encouragement, with a little extra help, or with a little motivation, they will get there. So we're not afraid of close. But we do have a 4th category that we do look at, and that's in need of support. This is the student who truly struggles. We're not sure if they have the requisite skills, or they're just so far behind, or they're having so much trouble getting the information that it has become a detriment to their learning. Doesn't mean they do not do well in the end, just means they need extra help, extra care, and extra love, which we were giving them. So that's all reason why we look at these 4 categories. I'm going to go back a slide for you one more time. So when you look at this graph, this includes exceeding, ready, and close. So again, we are exceeding all the private schools in our total group in all 4 categories. What you can see if we look at this chart again is where we exceed in the exceeding, the ready, and the close, how we come out in the 4 groups. So we're very happy so far with what we're doing as a school. We are testing students in this category from grade 3 through grade 10. So this is looking at students in grade 3 through grade 10 in these 4 categories. A quick overview of what these grades look like by grade level is, if you look at grade 3, they're exceeding in English, ready in reading, ready in science, and exceeding in math. If you look at grade 4, exceeding, ready, ready, ready. Grade 5, exceeding, ready, ready, ready. Grade 6, exceeding, ready, ready, ready. Can you see a pattern here? This is the reason why we are not worried about an education gap or a learning gap for our students. Because again, this test was not modified, nor were any of the conditions under the testing changed to meet COVID conditions. It was exact same as if they were taking it in a non-COVID year. So our students were able to perform the way we thought they should, the way we wanted them to, and the way we hoped they would be. If you look at grades 9 and 10, we are now moving into senior high where their work is getting more rigorous. There's a lot more student responsibility, and you'll see when it gets to science and math, we're getting a little close. We're not quite there, but we expect to see that too. They're now looking at high level math. Our 9th graders are not doing Algebra 1. They're doing geometry. They've already done Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So we have students who are doing geometry or Algebra 2. So we're not going to be surprised if they're getting close into the science or math. So we expect to see that in those 2 grade levels. So don't let that fool you or scare you, because our students are doing exactly what we expect to see them do and are performing the way we know they do. That's why we have so much support in place with the way we support these students in these areas, because we know by the time they get through their 4 years, they will not only be ready, they will be exceeding. So here's what we're going to look at. We stopped giving the ACT Aspire in grade 10, and we require all juniors to take the PSAT. So this gives us another look at how our students are doing against another set of college benchmarks, which is another college entrance exam. So there's a total, they do two. They do an evidence writing and reading test, and they do a math, and then do a combined score. Now what we did here was compare these groups against all students in the nation, private and public, taking this test. So this total group is not just private schools, but it's all schools taking the test. So we're really comparing it to anybody at any level and any rigor level. So when you look at our total, which is the combined score, we outperformed the total group by quite a bit. Now, you will not see a readiness benchmark because it does not exist for those. Those benchmarks are done by the subtest, which we're going to look at now. So the ERW means evidence, reading, and writing. In other words, they're reading paragraphs, graphs, all kinds of information, and they have to either write about it or draw conclusions from it and make decisions about it. It's sort of like we're talking about in reading for the Aspire. We are comparing our group, Christ Academy, in blue, to the total group in orange, to the readiness benchmark in gray. As you can see, our juniors outperformed in both categories. And then in math, we're looking at the same thing, Christ Academy compared to the total group and to the readiness benchmark set by higher ed. And again, you can see our juniors outperformed both of the other categories. So we are very confident that what we're doing is working for our students, that our students are performing at what the expected level are and above, that they are truly being prepared for what it's going to be when they reach higher ed or the workforce. So we are going to say to you, academically, we're sound, we're on track, and students will do what they need to do to be successful in whatever path they choose for themselves. Thank you. Thanks for listening.